Okay, so let me go over how to actually make this thing print out the little grid cells, because I think having those things included as part of the tic-tac-toe board does add a little bit. So if you want to add something like that, it's actually part of this right here. So I would start with, let's say, hey, just print out a vertical line here instead of a space. So this is only going to print it out for the first board that I have. I have 3 lines here, which actually is 1 too many lines. Like tic-tac-toe boards only have 2 vertical lines. So I actually don't want to print this out every time. I only want to print this out if j is less than the number of columns minus 1. The reason why I do this is because I only want to print out 1 vertical line for every column that I have minus 1. I have 3 columns, I only need 2 vertical lines. So I put this if statement here. And now looking at the top, there's my empty tic-tac-toe board. And then after every time I go through each column, I can also print out a little something like this. Like so. This is going to give me 3 horizontal lines, which is 1 too many horizontal lines. So again, I'm going to set up an if statement. If I is less than rows minus 1, print this out. Otherwise, I'm always going to print out another line break here. By doing this if statement like this and printing out a set of horizontal lines, I can effectively have only 2 horizontal lines here. And then what I want to do is, now that I have this, I can take this whole for loop, I can replace every one that I have here with that for loop. I'm going to show you guys a way to do this without having to copy and paste this like 9 times. But for now, this is actually totally reasonable to do. So I just replaced this 4 times. So you guys can see now I actually have a board in between. All right. Cool. Let's do some. I'll put this up on Zool. Okay. Let's move on. So you really can only get so far making console games. Like tic-tac-toe and like text-based RPGs are kind of the limit of what you can do with console-based games. If you guys ever played, there's these old games called MUDs, which are multi-user dungeons. They're actually the first like precursor to MMOs. You dial in like you use an SSH client or a specific client, and it's all text-based. Like these games, I have to take a detour and show you guys these. These MUDs are free to play, and they aren't very impressive visually. They look something like this, but they basically use terminals to like create a game. So like here's an example. It's effectively an RPG. So let me see here. Let's a good example. Here's one, and I don't know why all these images are so poor quality. So this is all ASCII, right? This is all client, but you can see how they're using effectively dashes and pluses and brackets and stuff. This is kind of like the extent of what you can do. What's cool about these, if you're ever interested, you can play these for free. They're all MMOs. They have like way more content than any MMO out there. Like they have so much content in here because they're all text-based, right? But it's a true RPG. Like you start level 1, you level up, you gain skills and abilities. You have classes and races and equipment. There's thousands of levels. You can re-level, so you can like prestige and restart with stronger levels. It's multiplayer, so you're playing with like this one, Ardwolf. It has like tons of people playing, probably 100 or so people playing at once for a text-based game. But you can see there's like a limit to like how you can do. So I want to show you guys this. This is Sfml. This is an example, some screenshots of what Sfml can do. So Sfml is called the Simple and Fast Multimedia Library. What you guys have been using so far has been the built-in C++ standard library. It gives you things like ability to use strings, the ability to do cout and cin, ability to create arrays, like kind of built-in functionality. This uses C++. It's almost like an add-on that you put on top of C++ that lets you do things like create a window and draw shapes of different colors, or draw textures to the screen, or draw text onto the screen. This Tetris game I made is made in Sfml, and Sfml gives you the ability to not only draw stuff to the screen, but it handles things like you can hook up an Xbox 360 controller or an Xbox One controller, and you can get inputs from that and use that in your C++ program. It also handles some things like OpenGL interaction. So if you wanted to use OpenGL for something, Sfml will let you do that. So let me show you guys what that looks like here. I have what's called an SDVA engine. I made this engine for you guys. This is a simple 2D engine. This really is, I have evolutions of this as we learn more that can do more things. So the first version of this engine is really going to be super simple. I'm going to show you guys the majesty of this. This is really, I'm giving you guys a sneak peek as to what Overwatch 2 potentially could be. Maybe even Overwatch 3, this is so advanced. Who knows?
5D.
This is going to be Overwatch 7, the quality of this. There you go.
Wow.
This is a secret project, okay? You guys can't share this info. Sfml lets you do things. This is the actual normal size of it. So using some code, you can do things like draw a circle with a specific color on the screen. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it also does things like create windows for you, okay? So I want to show you guys that this file here that I'm editing right now is going to be the basis for all the other stuff that we're going to do from the next class onward. But I want to show you guys this a little bit because this utilizes a lot of stuff we've used up to this point. I want to talk a little bit about objects because this file here uses a lot of the same concepts as what we talked about last 2 weeks ago with objects in games. For instance, if you look at that very first line of code, that SF : is also the first time you guys are seeing a namespace that's not STD, right? You guys have been using STD : Well, SF is just another one of those. It's another version of a namespace. It's where Sfml lives. SF stands for simple fast. They put SF in front of it to give it a unique name. : means, hey, from this namespace, I want to access this object called a render window. Can anyone tell me what that line is actually doing at a high level? Like just not specifics, but what does that line actually do? Yeah, Mike.
It's saying to display something at 200 by 200 size, and then the shape is 100 degrees.
Don't worry about the shape yet. We're going to do that next. So that first line is actually creating a variable. Can you guys see what the variable type is? Render window. That's the type. It's creating a variable called render window. And that's the name of the variable. Inside parentheses, do you guys remember how you could initialize variables with parentheses as well? This is another way you can do that. It's initializing this variable with 2 values separated by a comma here. So this is just a variable, just like anything else in C++. It's just a variable. I'm calling it window. It just happens to be called window. However, it takes 2 arguments here. The second argument here is a string. You guys can see that. That dictates the title of this window, what you want this window to be called. Watch when I run this. The title of my window is Welcome to SDVA103. The first argument here to this window variable is an object. Actually, this render window itself is actually an object. A render window is not a recognizable type that you guys have seen before, right? It's not an int or a bool or a character. It's actually a custom type of object that lives in Sfml. Video mode is another type of object that lives in Sfml. That SF namespace means declare a variable called video mode. and give it those two numbers, which was correct. It was 200 by 200, represents the width and the height of the window. That's getting passed into my variable type. So if I wanted to change the size of my window to be HD 720p, I can change those two numbers and watch my window here. Now it's a 720p window, right? I can control the size of that window by changing those two numbers, just like I can change the value of this string. Okay, the next variable that I have, circle shape. That's another variable, right? That 100 there dictates the radius of the shape. It's how big I want this circle to be. Shape takes an argument, which is how big do you want this circle to be in radius. This is pixels, by the way. That's the units. Now look what's happening here. This is something that we talked about 2 weeks ago when we mentioned strings, right? I had talked about how objects have two big parts. One is the properties that describe the object, and the second is the things that object can do, right? So that shape has a property that describes the radius. That's what we're setting up here. I just know it because I've seen it. You can actually see it. If you ever want to know, you can double click on it, hit F12. You'll get taken to the header file that dictates it. And it has a property here, a float variable called radius. That's a property that describes it. It also happens to have another variable, size t. This is just an integer, it's just a number, that specifies how many points are comprising the circle. So this circle shape has two properties, but it also has a bunch of things that it can do. One of the things that it can do is change its color, specifically its fill color. So on the shape lives a bunch of things that it can do. One of them is I can call this function on it. Just like how, remember with strings, I could erase elements out of a string. With a shape, I can also set its fill color to be something different. What am I setting the fill color to? Something in SF has a variable type called color. SF : color. That is a thing that describes a color. But you see another set of colons after it. This means, hey, this SF color is actually just yet another namespace. You can actually have namespaces inside of other namespaces. And this can continue. We happen to have a lot of namespaces at Blizzard because a lot of people work on stuff. SF : color : green. There is a color called green that lives in the color namespace. So I'm setting the color to be green. Okay. When you're writing the color here, Visual Studio will try to help you out. It will say, hey, I know of all these things inside of here. I know I can set it to be magenta if I want to. There is a list that you'll get when you actually autocomplete it, so you can change the color of the circle. You can also create a color yourself. Instead of using a predefined color, if you put a set of parentheses after this saying, hey, I want to make a new color, you can specify the color in terms of its RGB values, which are its red, green, and blue values, right? You guys should be pretty familiar with that if you've taken any Photoshop or understand Photoshop at all. These numbers are between 0 to 255, representing 0 is none of that color and 255 is all of that color. So if I wanted to make a color like, I don't know, blue, I would have 0 red element, 0 green, and then 255 blue. This means I want a fully blue colored circle. If I wanted something more like a pale blue, I could increase the amount of red and green in it. This will make it slightly less blue, slightly more pale. The numbers that I type in here, the closer they all get to 255, the closer to white it becomes. Okay? And if you make this thing 255 and 255, it makes it fully white. And 0 would be the absence of it, so it would be black, so you wouldn't see it. Okay? So let's go over this, because this is the remainder of the engine. This is how the engine works. For now, I'm going to actually disregard this. You can't delete it, but I'm just going to assume it doesn't exist for now, just to talk about these three and the while loop. So remember, we have a variable type called window, right? We declared it up here. We have a variable named window. Window is also another object. It has parameters and properties that describe what a window is, and it has things that it can do. One of the things it can do is tell you whether or not the window is still open. Okay? So that while loop, look at what the true condition is. It says while the window is open, do this loop. It means as long as you haven't closed this window, this loop will keep running over and over again. You guys remember when I said a game loop is all about a while loop that repeats over and over again? Mm-hmm. It had a while true. Yes. This is effectively the same. This statement here is effectively the same as a while true. But the caveat is that it will stop running it as long as you close the window. So if I click on that, it will close it. Here are some other things I do with the window. I can clear it. This right here, this clear, will remove everything that I'm currently showing on the window. That draw will take the shape I declared right up here, that's the variable name shape, and shove it into the window. Window says, hey, I can let you draw things. Just tell me what you want to draw. So you're actually telling the window, hey, draw this thing. Okay? Saying, hey, window, I want you to draw this shape. It will take that shape and it'll represent it on the screen. It'll store it internally. However, it doesn't actually bring it to the monitor until you call display. This is this three-step process that you use to draw things. Whenever you're rendering things to the screen, you clear everything, you draw everything to a buffer, and then you say display it, which takes that buffer and puts it up onto the screen. You do this every frame. Okay? Watch what happens when I tell the shape to move ever so slightly every frame. This is me telling the shape to move 0.1 in x every time through the loop. This is inside of the loop. Okay, so I'm moving the shape. Watch what happens when I start removing some of these things. Like, watch what happens when I remove the clear. What would you expect to happen if I don't clear the window before I draw it every time?
Every circle will stay on the screen.
Every circle that I've drawn stays on the screen up to that point. So effectively, what I'm actually doing is I'm painting the circle on the screen. It's actually drawing and not clearing every previous circle, right? This is happening every frame. What if I don't do this? It doesn't draw anything, right? I'm not telling it to draw the shape, so I get a blank screen. Likewise, if I never tell it to display,
The window's not going to come up at all.
the window comes up. But see how there's nothing inside? There's not even black on the window. Like I can literally see through the window, right? And there's actually not drawing anything. So understand that those are the three parts you always have to render stuff correctly onto the screen. Okay. I will talk briefly about this other loop. You see how this is what's called a nested loop inside of our game engine? This window, it's asking it to poll an event. It's creating a variable called an SF event and saying, hey, while you have things that I need to poll, be inside this loop. What does this mean? So a lot of stuff happens when you're doing Windows game development. Windows is actually a very complex operating system. It manages multiple programs that are running. It manages you moving and resizing windows. It manages events of like a mouse cursor entering the window and leaving the window. There's all kinds, just like thousands of things that it's doing. This loop right here basically lets you hook into some of those things that Windows is taking care of. It lets you know when the player has done something like press a button or try to resize the window. Specifically, what you see here inside this while loop is if someone tried to close the window. This event here, it's an if statement that says, if I got an event that says they want to close the window, go ahead and call close on it. What does this mean? How this event here is actually a special event from Windows when you click this X in the top right. You notice any window that's running has that X in it, so all the things are the same. When I click this X, that's what allows me to close the window. What happens if I comment this out?
You won't be able to close it.
I won't be able to close the window at all because this thing, this event, is a Windows event.
Oh no.
Now I'm stuck. Cannot close my application because this event here is something that Windows is telling me. You can actually make your program unclosable if you want to. Just like,
You're gonna play my game forever.
yeah, they can kill it, but that is something that you have to handle. Windows is telling you that someone wants to close this, so you have to respect that. And some of you guys are thinking, I don't have to respect that. I can do whatever I want to. Until you try to close it the first time and you realize that, okay, maybe I do need a way to close it. Right? Okay. So here's what I want you guys to do. I have this little engine here. I'm going to give you guys this engine right now, and we're going to do a little bit of a lab today. Close this. I'm going to put this up on Zool so you guys can all do this. So the way that you run this is you open, there's in the engine folder, there's an engine SLN that I want you guys to grab. This is not the right folder at all. Don't grab that. There's a folder called SDVA engine that I'm going to put into SDVA103. Copy it to your desktop. Do not run it out of the folder. You'll just ruin the experience, and it'll make it harder for everyone else. Just copy this to your folder. Open the engine.sln file in there in Visual Studio, and I want you guys to do this. So I'm going to have you guys change the color. I'm going to have you guys change the position of the circle. Change the size of the circle.
Somebody fucked up again.
What happened?
It keeps asking for permission for everything.
Okay.
You just have to set it.
Hang on. Okay, just don't use that folder. Give me.
Cancel.
Wait, just hang on.
Someone opened it up again. Who's being a troll? I'll sick troll trace on you.
Okay, I'm going to put it in another location. I'll just put it in Zool.
I think it actually works.
I'm going to put it in the root of Zool. There's an SDVA engine in the root of Zool. Copy that. Don't try again, just cancel. Go to the root of Zool and grab that SDVA engine folder, please. Copy it to your desktop.
I think I got it.
Did you get the other folder too?
No, this was the original one.
Go up one level. Okay, it looks. Maybe try running the SLN file over there. Copy that whole thing to your desktop.
This one.
Yep. No, SDVA.
Is it me? Because you're running it? Or
Copy that whole.
Are you running the file?
Just copy it. I'm not running it at all. You didn't open this, right? Out of Zool, you copied it?
Yeah. Yeah, I copied it.
Everyone copied. Who's running it right now? Who has it open right now? Anyone have
I
it
have it open
open?
right now doing my own thing.
Anyone have it open? Everyone has issues copying it. It still means to me that someone is.
I'm about to open it.
No, I got it.
You got it.
Okay, try
It's like
again.
everything, it's asking for permission to copy over everything. So,
It's just asking for permission.
yeah, it's just asking permission.
Someone definitely has the project open on Zoom.
They should be printed from mine.
No, I don't think so.
No.
You don't get any of this stuff. You don't. Can you show me?
Yeah, I have a little copy of it in there, so I have it open right now.
No, I want you to copy it. Yeah, copy the SDVA. I need you to copy. Go this folder here. Go up one level to Zool. Go to Zool. Click on the word Zool and then copy that. Or just the whole thing. Just do this for all current items.
It'll still make you do it.
And then try that. And then skip just a make choice. That's something. You guys got to copy it okay?
Yeah.
You try running it for me and see what happens. You see a green circle. Okay, once you have it, run it and see that you have a green circle coming up.
I have a white.
Oh, white circle. Sorry, I changed it to be white. Remember. And then do this up here. Change the color. Why don't you change the size of the circle? Play around with it a little bit. Set the position of the circle as well. I want it red. And then I want you to add a second smaller circle, changing its color and size.
So I get like one thing.
I'm going to grab the one off the SDVA folder. There's actually another one. If you go into SDVA103, try grabbing that. There's an SLM file. You didn't grab it all either. You didn't copy the data. Some of you guys are having real issues with it. Were you able to copy it now? Yeah. So if you're having problems, go try to copy it from the Zool again, and go into the SDVA103. Skip all those. Sorry, I will keep this up. So none of these files will be harmful to your computer. Don't worry.
These aren't ours anyway.
Okay, try grabbing it again, guys, and see. Try grabbing it off SDVA103 and see again. Are you able to get it to run, Brad? White circle?
No, because I think it's because it's trying to run off my USB.
Delete the folder. Yeah. Get it?
It's right here.
Yeah,
No one pops up.
Yeah, go there.
Yeah.
You just hit try again.
I think there might be a problem with like multiple tools.
It's a spear bomb.
I got one. So then it just says they're built. And then it says that there's no engine .cpp.
Looks like you didn't copy it correctly. Go into the folder where this lives. So if you don't have an engine, go back to Zool. Keep this open. Someone sends you that. Okay. Put engine CPP back. For those of you guys that are ready to go, just go ahead and start on the PowerPoint that I have up here.
I opened this on the VCX.
Okay, I put it back up there. There's an engine CPP file inside that folder. You can copy engine.cpp. Put that into your own engines. Yeah, that's the one. I did have 5 on it. No.
Purple.
Make sure you copy it to the same folder that the white circle. You're missing some files still. Go out one level. There's like stuff missing from there too. Okay, just copy that whole thing. Just copy that whole folder. I swear I've hit this before where like Zool just randomly it's out go into copy this folder. Grab it all. Copy it. Go to your folder. Oh, okay. Grab it.
What does the .f mean?
.f means float. It means it's a floating point number.
Okay.
Go to your engine folder, go to your solution now. Try to oh.
That was the.
Oh, that's it.
Well, yeah. Create a circle. And you give it a circle name.
Give white circle?
You can change the word shape to anything you want.
Double click on the Can I drive for a second here? Do you mind? You're missing like one file.
How do we set the decision with the?
I think, you know what, I bet you it's something to do with the antivirus. I bet you there's something in here that's like detecting like, oh, these are risky files. I'm just going to start deleting half of these. It's probably running an antivirus scan on some of these files. So I will get you a version that works. Yeah, it deleted one file, config HPP.
Windows.
Yeah, Katie, I wanted to kind of do so I put the one config HPP. That's the one there. Somehow that one got deleted. I'll be with you in a minute. So some of those files. Okay, I'm going to copy the entire directory.
Why am I still getting answers?
Okay, now try to grab the whole directory again. Just grab everything in that folder. Copy and replace. I'd almost even reopen the solution or close the solution. Is this the right? Is that where you're putting this stuff? Is that folder? That's not the same. Great. I can find out the Go to that folder. Go to the folder where the solution is in. So this one. This one's not the open level. What is that directory? It's a all engine. Go to Visual Studio. I wonder how to make that else. That's like more graphics. What I would see if you could also open that. Is it move something? Maybe not something else. Graphics. You don't have the shell file. Is that Zool or is this your local?
This should be my local.
Go back to the other folder where you go into Zool or in graphics. copy the SDV folder from Zool.
This
So
one?
that one,
Onto the desktop
desktop.
Okay, so.
because it runs faster.
Yeah, some of these files just didn't get copied over. Makes no sense. Okay. Yeah, that one file got deleted too. So, grab it. I gotta get everyone up and running here before I move on.